Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. We apologize for running a little late. Normally we start right at 6 o'clock, so our apologies. First up on the meeting is roll call. Terrell?
Mayor Gill?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dukes?
Here.
Councilmember Buckland?
Here.
Councilmember Mon?
Here.
Councilmember Starkey?
Here. Okay. If you'd please stand for the invocation given by Councilmember Dukes.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the wonderful community that we live in and the people and citizens that we represent. We pray that you would be here with us tonight. Give us the wisdom we need to make the decisions that are right for all. We pray this in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance by Councilmember Starkey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing up is the presentations and proclamations. We've got 3 proclamations today. We've got 2 to our retiring firemen here, Battalion Chief John Lemus and Fire Captain Jeff Steffens. But first up is Public Service Recognition Week, May 4th to May 10, 2014. And we've got a proclamation which is going to be presented to Dave Colander, who's with the Water Treatment Plant Operator, and Mike Palucci, Deputy Works Public Director. If both of you are here, you can come forward. A microphone. Our microphone's getting batteries, so we'll try to yell a little bit louder. Water Treatment Plant Operator and Mike Palucci. Honor of the millions of public employees at the federal, county, and city levels that keeps our nation working. Day out that provide the diverse services demanded. Without public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders. Grateful for the opportunity to thank you all you do on behalf of Yuba City. Hard work does not go unnoticed, and we want you to know we're proud to serve you. On behalf of the entire City Council proclaim Public Service Recognition Week. All citizens are encouraged to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of the government employees at all levels, federal, state, county, and city. Congratulations. I'd like to say a few words.
I'd just like to thank the City of Yuba City. They're a great employer, and we're very happy to be of service.
Great. Thank you guys very much. Okay, first proclamation I've got for Fire Captain Jeff Steffens. Come on right up here. Won't you hold this up while I read? Proclamation has a lot of the accomplishments that have been accomplished over the years, and I've got a little synopsis that I do want to read for yourselves. Congratulations to Fire Captain Jeff Steffens on his retirement from the Yuba City Police Department. Jeff is retiring from the Yuba City Fire Department on April 28, 2014, with over 30 years of service to the City of Yuba City and the residents of Sutter County. Prior to joining the Yuba City Fire Department, Jeff served as a firefighter with the California Division of Forestry and as a smoke jumper with the U.S. Forest Service. Captain Steffens served and participated in every aspect of a modern fire department operating, including fire suppression, developing fire training and curriculum, and as part of the department's hazmat team and the fire investigation team. Captain Steffens contributed to the growth, success, and professionalism of Yuba City Fire Department and the firefighting profession. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Cash Gale, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, and on behalf of the entire City Council of the City of Yuba City, do hereby honor and commend Jeff for his 30-plus years of faithful service to Yuba City Fire Department, the City of Yuba City, and to the people of Yuba City and Sutter County, and commend him for his 38-year career in the fire service, and wish him much success and happiness in a well-deserved retirement. Congratulations.
Well, I didn't expect to say anything, but I just wanted to thank the city and my friends and my brothers for a wonderful career. And I want you to know I've been blessed. Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, if I could have Battalion Chief John Lemus. I'd ask you to hold this while I read that as well. Congratulations to Battalion Chief John Lemus on his retirement from the Yuba City Fire Department. John is retiring from the Yuba City Fire Department on April 28, 2014, with over 27 years of service to the City of Yuba City and his residents of Sutter County. And prior to joining the Yuba City Fire Department, Chief Lemus was a member of the Santa Barbara County Fire Department and with the Susanville District of the Bureau of Land Management. Chief Lemus served and participated in every aspect of a modern fire department operating, including development of the department's swift water rescue ART team, safety committee, juvenile fire setters committee, fire recruitment academy, training committee with the implementation of the enhanced 911 and with the department's fire prevention efforts. Additionally, Chief Lemus served as the instructor with the Yuba College Fire Academy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Cash Gill, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council and the City of Yuba City, do hereby honor and commend Battalion Chief John Lemus for his 27-plus years of faithful service to the Yuba City Fire Department, the City of Yuba City, and to the people of Yuba City and Sutter County, and commend him for his 32-year career in the fire service, and wish him much success and happiness in his well-deserved retirement. Congratulations and thank you for your service to the City of Yuba City.
Thank you very much. You know, as I stand up here, I see some young men sitting in this second row over here, and I was not much older than them when I decided to get in the fire service. When I came here in 1987 at the age of 23, really, I was a kid at that point, and all I wanted to do was fight fire. And I did get that opportunity here. But more importantly, I learned what it meant to be part of a local government and this city that I've been able to work for. I've had a great opportunity here to fulfill my dream in the fire service. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And the one thing that I learned along the way was, yes, how a fire department operates, but better yet, how a city operates. And this is a great city, and you got great employees in every department that I've had an opportunity to work with. So thank you very much. Going to miss you along the way, but I'm sure we'll bump into each other. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is a presentation by the City of Yuba City Bicycle Committee, presented by Kelly Swanson, member of the Bicycle Advisory Committee.
You guys leaving?
No pressure. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to, stick that over on you.
At the fire station.
Me on there, I hope. Said it was. Oh, phew. That's a good thing. Oh, okay. I just don't want to spill it on your. Knowing me, I'll probably do that. I'm going to take a deep breath. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Kelly Swanson, and I volunteer on the Bicycle Advisory Council, and tonight I will be presenting the Council's PowerPoint presentation, which would not exist without the efforts of Officer Michael Green, Diana Langley, and Brad McIntyre. So I'm going to try to, here we go. Oh, there we go. This is a slide telling you what the Bicycle Advisory Committee is, which is new to me. I haven't read that one. And I'm going to forward to the one that I know about. Okay, this is Bicycle Helmet Citation and Collision Comparison provided by the Yuba City Police Department. And this is for 2013. And we hope these numbers will be further reduced with events I'll mention later in this presentation. This is one of those events, and effective this September 16th, and the 3 Feet for Safety Act will require drivers to give bicyclists a 3-foot wide clearance while passing them or waiting till it's safe to pass. And like I said, this will be happening effective September 16th, and again, aiding in a safer riding and driving experience. The following are projects completed in Yuba City since the Bicycle Master Plan was written. They are improved bike legends on Class 2 bike lanes throughout the city. Over 15 miles of Class 3 bike routes have been added. The concept of sharrows has been introduced, and 176 sharrows have been installed on various city streets. And a bicycle parking cost share program was developed, which where 72 bike racks were installed at businesses and city parks. Pictures of the bike racks. Yay! Handy. Additional projects completed where we celebrated Bike Month for the last 3 years, installed Class 2 bike lanes in accordance with the Bicycle Master Plan at the following locations, which are all up there. And, oh, here we go. This is that logo, and, oh, I don't see any sharrows. This white striping has gotten some nice compliments from folks. It was a test area, but apparently it's gotten some positive comments. Future projects include installing Class 2 bike lanes at the following locations: Percy Avenue and B Street, and Butte House Road and Madison to Royal Ranchero. Both of these are funded by grants. Upgrading bike lane striping to reduce right turn conflicts. Developing and installing signage to highlight popular riding destinations. Installing bicycle detection at major newer intersections, and again celebrating May is Bike Month in 2014. And this May, our Bike Month activities include a kickoff event on Thursday, May 1st from 11 to 1. FracMed is hosting a bike to lunch to Gaucher Aquatic Park, and the Yuba Center Transit Management Authority will treat riders to lunch for residents signing up online. There will be bike-related booths set up, and the City of Yuba City will also host a booth at this event. Additionally, activities will be celebrating National Bike to School Day on Wednesday, May 7th. The City of Yuba City will host refueling stations at 10 local schools, where the first 50 riders will receive a bike bottle or water bottle, snacks, stickers, and brochures and flyers are going out to publicize this event. Also, there will be a refueling station for bike commuters on Wednesday, May 14th, set up by the City of Yuba City on the top of the Levee bike path, and bikers will enjoy drinks and morning breakfast on the way to work. That was nice. Events to aid in helmet compliance and child rider safety will be 4 bicycle rodeos in April and May, held at AK School, Park Avenue, Encinal, Luther, and also a rodeo at the Plumas Street 4th of July Parade. And these rodeos include helmet fitting and distribution, a safety presentation, and a skills course for the kids to ride through. Finally, a summary of accomplishments are an expanded bicycle network throughout Yuba City in accordance with the Bicycle Master Plan, the concepts of sharrows introduced, 72 bike racks at businesses and parks installed, a map of the Yuba City bike network prepared and distributed, and over 60,000 miles logged through Maya's Bike Month efforts from 2011 to 2013. This is a picture of the bike network. And thus, the Bicycle Master Plan continues to encourage a more safe, accessible, and comfortable bike riding experience for anyone riding in Yuba City, and driving for that matter, too. On behalf of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, thank you for your time this evening.
Any questions for Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly, I think this new law is great, where the cars are supposed to give the bicycles 3 feet. Are you, as a group, going to get with the police department and do some promotions and some awareness for the public for this thing?
I'm not sure if that exactly has come up at our meeting to promote, to publicize that exact law. I would love to see some promotion for that, and that would be something
great.
I would bring
And
up.
tell them they can start now. They don't have to wait till September.
That sounds good. Thank you. Do you have any money to go along with that request?
Got $10.
Okay.
I'm good,
We'll
really.
start a kitty. That'd be great.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I don't, not really any questions, just some suggestions possibly. And these are not directed at you, Kelly. You know, as we really proceed through a lot of these changes in law and how we implement and put in bicycle lanes, a lot of this also is based around education. And we need to do we need to do a better job of partnering with the police department in education. Their program that they have there, it's the BEEP program. That's bicycle education and then enforcement program. But they really emphasize heavily on education. Even though the new implementation of the law is in place, I oftentimes see bicyclists on narrow bike lanes riding in tandem or in triplet, in triple side by side. I think the riding groups need to also be cognizant of the laws that they're violating, and we need to work with those groups, especially those that are out riding a tremendous amount of miles, because it's the miles that are going to add up into future incidents. So if we could find some way to work with those groups and maybe just as reminders where we work with the children at all of the elementary schools, also dealing with adult education when it comes to bicycling and also operation of automobiles, to include the safe passing distances.
Thank you. Yeah, we have representation of bike groups at on the Bicycle Advisory Council, and Officer Green attends all our meetings as well. So I second your recommendation.
Whatever we can do to help promote that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Question?
Thanks.
And Kelly, one other thing. Over here. In addition to that is teaching the riders, whether they be adults or children, that they have to obey the traffic laws too and stop at intersections. I can't tell you the number of times that bikes just ride right through an intersection, not even looking for traffic and not stopping if it's a controlled intersection. That is a very important thing to be taught also, and that they are subject to the same traffic laws as motor vehicles are also. Thank you.
I very much agree. As someone who's made those violations many, many times, I totally agree.
Kelly, thank you for coming and presenting this to us tonight. Next up is public hearings. Item number 5, Feather River Parkway, Phase 2, adopt mitigation negative declaration, presented by Diane.
Good evening. So in April 2013, the City Council accepted a $1.743 million grant through the Safe Drinking Water, Water Quality and Supply, Flood Control, River and Coastal Protection Bond Act of 2006, better known as Proposition 84. The Phase 2 project includes creation of 2.6 miles of new public trails, picnic areas, an overlook of the Feather River, improved access to the pond located in the Phase 1 project, interpretive signs, restoration of 2 acres of woodlands or wetlands, and preservation of 10 acres of riparian woodlands. In accordance with CEQA, an environmental analysis was performed, an initial study mitigated negative declaration was prepared. It was determined that there will not be significant impact to the environment due to the mitigation measures proposed. The mitigated neg deck was circulated for public review in February and March, and comments were received from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. Their comments were addressed and a revised mitigated neg deck was issued. And so staff is recommending that after the public hearing, that council adopt the mitigated negative declaration for the Feather River Parkway Phase 2 project.
Great. Any questions for Diana before we open it up for a public hearing?
I just have a comment. Diana, I think it's good that we've started our spring cleaning out there, and I see that you had people and goats working hard out there to get things cleaned up at the park. So,
Yeah, that's actually Brad is the one that got the contract for the goats.
that's great. They clean it up and fertilize it at the same time. So.
I was surprised how much those goats charge to eat grass. Pricey.
Any questions for Diana from council members? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and open it up for a public hearing, and anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this item may do so. Seeing that there's no... is it on this particular item? Oh, no. Yeah, so... Okay, if nobody on this particular item, I'll go ahead and close this item. Okay, got a motion?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'll be getting to the public comment just in a few minutes. Item number 7 is bid opening, chemical bed FB 14-08. Mr. Morrison.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item we're bringing before you today is the chemical bid opening, formal bid 14-06, to provide chemicals to the water and wastewater treatment plants and operations. This bid will provide chemicals to be used in the purification of water for human consumption and the treatment of wastewater. We sent out notification to 60 vendors for this chemical bid and received 15 responses. And of those responses, the low bids are recommended to be awarded. For Category A, liquid chlorine, one company, Thatcher, was not able to hold their bid price for the quantity that was needed for delivery. This is a regular check we do to verify the prices with all the companies. We contact them, remind them of what their bid was, and ask them to commit by contract. And every once in a while, a company will look at what they bid and withdraw their bid. In that case, it goes to the next low bidder, which would be Sierra Chemical in this case. And there were only on the chemicals, there were only 2 bidders for liquid chlorine. Another item, sodium bisulfite, which is Category D. What was originally the low bidder contacted us and let us know that they accidentally transposed their numbers on 2 of the items, and so they had to respectfully withdraw their bid. That was Brentag, and the next low bidder was Univar, who we're recommending to award. It is worth noting that these contracts will be in effect as of May 1st through April 30 of 2015, which means that approximately 90% of the cost of these contracts will be borne in the 14-15 fiscal year. So it's staff's recommendation to award formal bid contracts for the period of May 1st, 2014 through April 30, 2015, based on the low bid in all categories as listed in the staff report. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Spencer from council?
No, through the mayor, move the recommendation.
Okay, got a motion?
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Spencer.
Second by John.
Yeah. Item number 7 is ADA Improvement 2014 Project Award of Contract. Total cost $252,330. Diana?
So the next 3 items on the agenda are for the award of Public Works capital improvement projects. Together they total almost $6 million, of which over $4.6 million is funded through grants.
Excellent.
So the ADA Improvements 2014 project provides for the upgrade of 39 pedestrian access ramps and 2 sidewalks. The locations are primarily Bridge Street, Garden Highway, Cooper at Forbes, Gray Avenue at Fire Station 2, and El Margarita Estates. The project was advertised for bid on March 20, 2004, and on April 8th, 6 bids were received and opened in the city clerk's office. The apparent low bidder was Dunton Construction Company of Anderson, California, in the amount of $229,389.40. The project is primarily funded through a community development block grant, with the remainder coming from road funds. And so staff is recommending award of the contract to Dunton Construction Company and requesting that you authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Questions for Diana?
No.
Okay.
Through the mayor,
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How are these sites selected versus other areas in the city?
These sites, several of these sites were selected through our transition plan. We actually have a process for the public to submit a complaint about ADA access. So several of these sites were selected based upon complaints. Bridge Street, there was a comment about this particular section that there was a person in a wheelchair that had to go out into the roadway and then go up onto the sidewalk via a driveway. So they requested ramps. At the intersection of Cooper and Forbes, we received a request there based upon sidewalk, the condition of the sidewalk and the ramps. And then also Garden Highway was selected in advance of our rehabilitation project that we're going to be doing with the overlay on Garden Highway. And then same thing with El Margarita Estates, because we're going to be doing an overlay as part of the Proposition 84 Waterline project. We needed to upgrade the ramps.
So these won't interfere with those projects that we have. These will just be prepared in advance, and we won't be tearing them out to redo them once we
Correct.
start those. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, one quick. That on El Margarita, are we ripping those roads open to put the water line in? We're not using the existing piping?
We're not using the existing piping.
Okay.
Okay. No. Can I get a motion from through the
Then I
mayor?
would so move.
Okay, got a motion from
I'll second.
Councilmember Starkey and a second from Councilmember Dukes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 8, low lift pump station, water intake facility, security improvement project award of contract, total cost $4.9 million.
So this project we received in August 2013. Council authorized the execution of a funding agreement with the California Department of Public Health in the amount of $3,965,000 for security improvements at the city's low lift pump station, which is our water intake structure. The intake structure is such a critical facility for the city that, and it's subject to vandalism. If in a high water event, we can't access it, and it's currently served by overhead lines. So this project provides for the installation of an underground electric service from the water treatment plant to the low lift pump station, changing out the siding so that it's bulletproof, installing security cameras so we can actually see what's happening at the facility, and then also running a fiber optic line so we can connect the facility to SCADA so that we can control it automatically from the water treatment plant. So very, very critical project. So the project was advertised for bid in December, and bids were opened on February 13th, in which 5 bids were received. At the bid opening, Hal Hayes Construction of Riverside was the apparent low bidder. However, after bid opening, the city received a bid protest from Auburn Constructors, and then shortly thereafter, we received a bid protest from Hal Hayes for Auburn Constructors. And working with the city attorney and Linda Beck of Best and Krieger, they evaluated both protests and concluded that the bid submitted by Hal Hayes Construction is not responsive, and the city cannot accept it, and that the Hal Hayes Construction protest of the bid submitted by Auburn Constructors is without merit, so therefore Auburn Constructors is the low bidder. Staff is requesting award of the contract to Auburn Constructors. In addition, staff is requesting execution of a professional services agreement with Carollo Engineers for construction management and engineering support during construction. So the total project cost is $4,910,000, of which $3,965,000 is through the Proposition 50 grant, and the remainder we're requesting a supplemental appropriation of $945,000 from unallocated water fund to the project account, of which there's currently $5.2 million available of unallocated water fund. And so the recommendation for this project is quite lengthy. We're requesting that council declare the bid received from Hall-Hayes Construction as non-responsive and reject the bid. Reject the bid protest of Hall-Hayes Construction, protesting the bid of Auburn Constructors. Award the contract to Auburn Constructors in the amount of their bid of $3,899,300. Authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Authorize the finance director to make a supplemental appropriation from the water fund to the project account. And finally, award a professional services agreement to Carollo Engineers in the amount of $197,600.
Questions?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Diana, this project is also going to intersect with the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency's project. Will that section that is going to go up and over the levee, is that going to be the last portion so that the levee portion is finished or the repair portion is finished, or how is that, what's the coordination going to be on that?
We've done significant coordination with Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency and having them review our plans during design, making sure that we were coordinating with them for the actual improvements that they're going to be doing. My understanding is that they've actually changed their project somewhat and that they may not do a wall in this specific section where the pipelines cross, and they're looking at perhaps installation of relief wells on the land side of the levee in this particular area. So they're looking at that alternative right now, but we have coordinated with them in terms of construction schedules. Our contractors aware that they have to coordinate with Sabifka's contractor and vice versa, and so we've tried to coordinate this from day one to make sure that we don't hinder each other's projects.
Thank you.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Diana, I'd just like to take a moment to commend you on the thoroughness of your staff reports. It was so complete that I just don't have a question in the world.
Well, thank you.
You did a hell of a job. Thank you.
Any
And if
questions?
there's no, is there any
question from Councilmember Mon?
No, I don't have a question. I'm ready to move.
Okay.
I'll move to.
You gonna make a move?
Yeah.
I'll make a second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9 is King Avenue Safe Routes to School Project Award Contract. Total cost $831,301.
So this is my final item tonight. In July 2012, the city received a $450,000 grant through the Safe Routes to School program for the installation of bike lanes and curb gutter and sidewalk on King Avenue between Clark Avenue and Live Oak Boulevard. The plans and specifications were approved by council on February 18th. The project went out to bid in March, and bids were opened on April 3rd. 8 bids were received and opened, and the apparent low bidder is J.D. Paschetti Engineering in the amount of $755,801. Just as a side note, these are the contractors that did the Blevin Road Safe Routes to School project for the city. So the total construction cost is $831,301, of which $450,000 is funded through the grant. Staff is requesting a budget transfer of $99,301 from the road rehab CIP account to the project account to make up the difference from what was budgeted to what's actually required to complete the project. And the project increased from the original estimated amount due to the condition of the existing subgrade. And then also we added the existing sewer laterals are fairly shallow, and so we have to address the sewer laterals as part of the project. So with that, staff is recommending award to J.D. Paschetti Engineering in the amount of their bid of $755,801. Authorize the city manager to execute the contract, and authorize the finance director to make the necessary budget transfers between CIP accounts.
Questions?
Yes.
No question?
Question. Dan, do you also have to improve the road, widen it to get to the sidewalk?
Yes.
And what is it, about a half a mile long, this road?
I'd say maybe quarter mile.
Quarter? That's, first I was just looking at it, I said, that's an expensive sidewalk, but then I thought about the road. And
Yeah, it's an older county road. So the
where's George?
So the subgrade,
Way before him.
yeah. So the subgrade would not meet current city standards. So it's basically a full reconstruction.
It's a lot more than a
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Yeah, and then also the project will take place during the summer when school's out.
Through the
Thank you.
chair.
Yes.
I recommend approval of the item, including items A, B, and C.
Okay, got a motion?
I'll second.
And second, and all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is public communication. You're welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comments is taken on items listed on the agenda when there are called. Public comments on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this point in time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinion of the group. Item number 10 is written requests. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be normally allotted 5 minutes to speak. Terrell, do we have any written requests?
We did not receive any written requests.
Perfect. Item number 11 is appearance of interested citizens. Members of the public may address the City Council concerning any items that has been described in the notice of this meeting. Individuals are encouraged to limit their statements to 3 minutes. I've got some speaker cards. Request to speak, Skylar DeBartle, and I apologize for pronouncing his name, but I may mess it up. Guillermo Gallardo? I hope I said that right. Ryan Handy and Andrew Olivier, and they would like to come and speak on regarding a skate park, and they've chosen their speaker, Skylar, who will speak to the council on behalf of all of them.
Yes. I'm coming to speak on the behalf of the scooter and BMX riders of Yuba City. And Yuba City Skate Park San Brandon isn't open to scooters or bikes, and we were wanting to know the steps or the processes we have to go to get it open.
That's a great question. It's not something that's on the agenda, so we can't really comment in detail on it, but one of the things that I would definitely recommend you do is visit with Mr. Brad McIntyre.
And me and him spoke.
Pardon?
Me and him have spoke.
Okay, so visit with Mr. McIntyre. He's also in charge of our youth commission, and one of the things that I would recommend you do is come to a youth commission meeting and make those recommendations through the youth commission. The youth commission would come and present those recommendations to the council, because not only are they representing the youth within our community, but they report to the council as well, and they also have a budget that we've given them for things to do for the youth in our community. So we'd love to see a recommendation from you to them to come directly to us, because I don't, without looking at the recommendations and seeing what the skate park is, it, accessible, is it adaptable to scooters and BM bikes or not, or is it just skateboards? They would definitely make their recommendations with all the homework done in on it.
And the budget thing, that's another thing. All of us have talked about throwing car washes and all the money going 100% towards the city.
Right.
And we think that would help, even if you guys can't open the park to like sessions of like skateboarders through this time, scooters this time, and bike riders this time.
Right.
Even if we can get a small amount of dirt, like a dirt spot that we can build our own jumps and put our own man hours into it and labor, we'd like to do that. And car washes would help with the funding for that too.
We absolutely love people who want to raise money for the city, and especially for the youth, because we hear that all the time that there's not enough activities for the youth to do. But I will definitely follow up with Mr. McIntyre if you can follow up with them. But also check and see when the next youth commission meeting is.
I'll be attending that tomorrow.
Yes. Okay, perfect. When is it?
7 o'clock.
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. So there you go. And then I'll follow up with it and make sure that we get a resolution to this.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much for coming and speaking here tonight. Okay, next thing is consent calendar. All matters listed in the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that the council votes on the motion, unless members of the city council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Would anybody from the city council or public wish to have any items polled, discussed separately? Okay, if not,
Move to approve.
got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Next up is general items. Status update concerning the dissolution of the city's former redevelopment agency, and I believe the next 5 or 6 is the Mr. Aaron Bush show. So you're up.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the successor agency. It's been a while since we've had to do that, but thank you for the opportunity to provide you all with an update regarding the former redevelopment agency's business matters. As you mentioned, I had the pleasure of presenting to you the next 4 items, all dealing with redevelopment issues. And really, items 16 through 18 are actual business matters that will need you to take action as the City Council and as the successor agency for Yuba City's former redevelopment agency. Because those three actions had a lot in the way of background for each of those individual subjects, I hopefully tried to make it simplified by presenting item 15 before you tonight, which is just an overall summary update of the activities that have happened since the governor passed the Dissolution Act, which eliminated redevelopment agencies throughout the state of California. So for item 15, I'll just give a quick overview, and then we'll move on into the other items that require your action. So with the winding down of redevelopment, as it was fondly referred to, all started with the Dissolution Act, which was passed by Assembly Bill 1X26. This was passed by the governor's budget in June of 2011. And as you can imagine, with over 400 redevelopment agencies in the state standing to lose a lot of money, there was a lot of lawsuits against that particular legislation. Unfortunately for those agencies, including ours, in December of 2011, the California Supreme Court upheld the act, and as a result, all redevelopment agencies in the state were dissolved effective February 1st, 2012. This right here is what were some of the requirements of AB 26, or the Dissolution Act as it's known. And I'll just go through these real quickly because some of the terms in here are very important for what has happened with your redevelopment agency. And I know that some of this is old news for some of you because you've had the pleasure of serving on the Oversight Board. Councilmember Dukes has been there from the start, and we appreciate your involvement in this. So I apologize for the redundancy to some of you. So AB 26 created several requirements that took effect immediately, and that was the formation of successor agencies and housing successor agencies to manage the wind down of the former redevelopment agency's funds. If you recall, redevelopment had a 20% housing set-aside fund that was to be used for housing matters to provide affordable housing, and then the other 80% was just this general fund, which we did things like the Town Center project with. So AB 26 required successor agencies to manage the winding down of those funds. It also required the creation of an oversight board, which was comprised of 7 different representatives from different agencies that benefited from redevelopment funds. And so we have created an oversight board to manage the winding down process. Enforceable obligations is a real key one that was created, and I'll get to that in a little bit more detail. Recognized obligation payment schedules, fondly known as ROPS. These are basically our semi-annual bills, if you will, what we had to pay as a redevelopment agency. What were our obligations, our enforceable obligations that we had contracts with that we had to pay. And then finally, the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund. That's basically a consolidation of all former redevelopment monies, that 80% pot and the 20% pot into one pot that would be used to pay all those obligations. This is just to show you an idea of everything that we've done since the passage of AB 26. We have created the successor agency and the housing successor agency. You folks are both those boards. We did create the oversight board, which met first on March 22nd, 2012. And we have approved all required semi-annual ROPS. To this point, there's been a total of 5. Our next one is going to be due in September, October. We created new accounts for the successor agency, and we have suffered through or gotten through multiple audits of the former redevelopment agency. Enforceable obligations. Real quickly, wanted to spend some time on this because this is what is the deal, if you will, for the redevelopment agency. Enforceable obligations, as it says here, includes a variety of different things: bonds, loans legally required to be repaid, and then the other one I underlined is legally binding agreements or contracts. Some key ones for the city and the former agency were the interagency startup loan between the city and the former redevelopment agency, and then the reimbursement agreement between those two agencies for the repayment of the 50% of the bond debt that was issued for the construction of the Gaucher Aquatic Park. When the redevelopment agency was active, these two loans totaled upwards of $40 million. And so there was an obligation when redevelopment was in existence for the agency to pay the city back for those agreements. Originally, we listed these on our ROPS as enforceable obligations. And going through the first two ROP schedules, they were approved by the Department of Finance. Unfortunately, by the third, the Department of Finance was being told from a higher source that you're not supposed to say yes, you're supposed to say no. And so as a result, when we submitted our third ROPS, we were told, no, those are no longer enforceable obligations. So that meant that the agency was no longer allowed to pay back the city for those reimbursements. Again, that was upwards of between $30–40 million. Staff took those decisions and did everything we possibly could with the successor agency and the City Council's direction to go appeal those. But unfortunately, we were appealing Department of Finance's determination to Department of Finance. So they were judge, jury, and executioner all in one fell swoop on these things. But I guess some good news that came out of this was the trailer bill, AB 1484, which was passed in June of 2012. It became effective immediately, and it gave us some new rules, but it also gave us some new penalties. This right here gives you an idea, a quick overview. It gave the oversight boards and successor agencies more responsibilities to perform. There were more audits and due diligence reviews. But it also gave the State Department of Finance more control and more opportunity to issue penalties. So, for example, on our ROPS that we're required to submit to them, for every day we were late, they could fine us up to $10,000. But some of the benefits, if you will, if there is really such a silver lining in this whole thing, is that as part of that legislation, well, I guess the first thing, though, is the due diligence review. And that's basically where we had to audit ourselves for a third time and tell the state how much money we were hiding away from them. Because if you recall, the goal of this legislation was to take back as much money as they could from redevelopment agencies to help fill the state budget. And so we went ahead and completed those reviews and found that we had nearly $2 million in surplus money of housing funds that we had to give back, and just about $130,000 or so in the non-housing funds that we had to give back. Now, in exchange for those extortion checks, they then said that we would get a finding of completion. And so we received that in September of 2013, and what this finding of completion means is that we've done everything we've needed to do for the legislation that was passed. We've given them all the money that they could find from us, and now we get the safe harbor provisions. And what that is very key for the next few items on the agenda tonight. First one is the ability to retain and dispose of former RDA property with the approval of a long-range property management plan, and that's the subject of item number 16 tonight. And then secondly, it also gave the successor agency, acting as the former redevelopment agency, the right to repay loans and agreements between those former redevelopment agencies and the city. So that gets to items 17 and 18, which is the interagency loan agreement and the Gaucher Aquatic Park agreement. I will say at this point that those loan repayments are expected to take a long time, because you can imagine that as you look at our RPTTF fund, we don't have a lot of money in there. We're one of 4 jurisdictions when this thing started in the state that was upside down, which is actually a good thing, because that meant that we were spending money the way it was supposed to be spent on redevelopment projects and putting it to good use. But unfortunately, the tax increment wasn't generating enough to pay all the bills. So we're just barely skating by, and we're actually running at a bit of a deficit. And so what will happen is that if over time we're collecting enough tax increment, 50% of that gets split between the agencies and the successor agency, then 20% of that money goes back into a new housing fund that's supposed to be created, and what's ever left over you can start incrementally paying yourself back. So it's going to take a long time. With regards to the long-range property management plan, just real quickly, it needs to address how all properties will be disposed of, and really we'll talk about that in more detail on item number 16. These are properties, the former redevelopment properties, and I'll show you in more detail on the next item, but these are the commercial properties located here in the town center. These sprinkled over here are the housing successor properties. So with that quick overview of the redevelopment wind-down process. I'll be happy to answer any questions before I go on to the next item.
Any questions for Aaron?
questions.
Yes, absolutely.
This has been an amazing process. Aaron, you mentioned that the Department of Finance, basically, they learned to say no. They were a little bit more generous to begin with, and quite honestly, there has been no due process on this. Are there any agencies that have sued the state or in the process of suing the state, or the fact that there has been no due process in this whole debacle?
I've heard of a variety of different success and failure stories, quite honestly, and they're all different. Those that had similar cases to ours tried but didn't get anywhere, that had existing agreements but that didn't meet the letter of the law. And we pursued, with the help of some lobbyist help, we pursued everything in terms of new legislation, amendments to the existing legislation, and it just didn't go anywhere. And we talked to our legal counsel, and they recommended that we really didn't have an opportunity because the way the other decisions had been passed down through the courts, similar to ours, we didn't really have a fighting chance.
Do we have an opportunity in the future that if someone is successful that we could go back at this, or is it just, at this point, a dead issue?
There are bigger pending cases out there still about the whole, overall legality of AB 26, and so depending on the outcome of those, certainly there is an opportunity to go back and revisit that.
All right.
Just never say never.
Exactly. It's been an interesting process, and I applaud you for the work that you've done on this project, because, as you mentioned, we've had to have one audit after another, and of course, Robin in finance to be able to go through these audits to prove to the state that we weren't squirreling away money anywhere, and it's been a very amazing process. So. Very frustrating for you, I'm sure, but thank you for all that you've done on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. This is just an informational item only, so it doesn't need any action. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to item number 16, approval of the mandated long-range property management plan for Yuba City Successor Agency.
So thank you. As I touched on just real briefly in the overview, the long-range property management plan is a plan that is mandated by AB 1484. It is basically the liquidation of all former redevelopment real estate. And so when the language came out, it was directed agencies to liquidate all properties as quickly and as for the best value possible. And so through the development of a long-range property management plan, we were supposed to identify all former redevelopment agency properties and how we're best going to dispose of those properties. Now, it does give us the option to retain some of those properties if they're found to be for public benefit or for public use. And we actually have one of those cases here. The other thing that it also did was that it superseded any other actions entered into by the redevelopment agency. And as the council and the successor agency is aware, we had actually entered into exclusive negotiation agreements with two potential land developers for redevelopment properties within our town center area. And while we were very close to getting to that next layer of approval, which would have been a development and disposition agreement, the level that we got to was not considered an enforceable obligation by Department of Finance. So the provision in 1484 right here basically said that legislation trumped what we had already done with those two developers. But all along the way, we've been telling and communicating with our oversight board, and I would like to just, at this moment, compliment our oversight board because they have been very supportive through this effort, and I've heard horror stories where oversight boards have been very cantankerous and disagreeing with successor agencies on their direction. But our oversight board sees the big picture in that it makes more sense for us to continue forward with these prospective developers on the acquisition and future development of those properties, because they do, in fact, represent the best opportunity to come away with a high-quality project that will, once it's built, will actually generate more tax increment for all the affected agencies. So it makes sense. So what we've done is taken a look at all the properties. We have a total of 8, and I won't bore you with all the details on each and every one of them, but I mentioned that we have one property that we're going to retain for public use, and that's this parcel way up here, parcel 1. As you can see here, it's on the Colusa Frontage Road, Plymouth Street over here. Really, this piece of property doesn't really have a whole heck of a lot of value for any adjoining property owners. Certainly is not developable as a new use in and of it by itself. So we believe that this makes more sense for the successor agency or the city to hang on to and implement the ultimate vision for the Central City Specific Plan, which this is a part of, for a plaza or maybe even some other type of improvement, roadway improvement, transit improvement. But certainly it has a better use in return for the city as opposed to a private property owner.
My question was perhaps a transit area there to take that off of the street just to the north there that's been an issue.
We've identified a variety of different options in the property management plan, and so as long as we can demonstrate the basis for retaining it, that it is in the public interest, we believe that that should pass through Department of Finance. And that's something I should have pointed out at the beginning is that this plan tonight we're presenting to you as the City Council and as a successor agency, and then following your action, we'll be taking this to the Oversight Board for their approval. If the Oversight Board approves it, which we're hoping they will, we then submit it to the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance can take as long as they see necessary to approve, modify, deny, or wherever they want to act on it. And then once, hopefully, they approve it, we get to start going forward with its implementation. And so for this piece, we're proposing to retain it and use it however we best see appropriate.
On your previous map, you showed some properties that were housing properties. Are those on Bridge Street that we had for the widening of Bridge Street or not?
They're sprinkled throughout the area, but yes, there are some on Bridge, and so we'll have to deal with that as part of this process as well as the NSP process.
Because I don't know if we have to buy those back out of the redevelopment agency or if we could use them as for public good because we're going to be widening Bridge Street. I don't know what the...
Yeah, that's an interesting argument that we're still researching because right now there is no real teeth there is no housing set-aside requirement because the redevelopment's gone. But yet there's new legislation coming out to replace that. And so, interestingly enough, we still have to, as the housing successor, provide housing audits, but there's still no requirement to produce that housing. But again, there's new legislation or new findings coming out from Department of Finance, who again get to be the judge, jury, and executioner in this whole process to interpret how they want it best to apply. So it's going to be interesting.
Because some of that property we did buy or purchase so that we could have it available for the Bridge Street widening. So is it possible that we may end up buying that from the successor agency
we may have
to have that available for that
Correct.
project in the future?
Correct.
But we can't put it through this process and say that it would be the public good to keep those rather than go through and have to buy them again?
Well, because the property management plan is intended to look at properties that we're selling, and it was determined when we presented to the City Council to serve as the housing successor at that time that we would go ahead and retain and hold on to all those housing assets and not include them in the property management plan so that we could deal with things like that when they came up.
All right, thank you.
So just real quickly, I wanted to get to the other properties that we're looking to do something other than selling for fair market value, which is really the gist of our proposal. And that would include parcels 2 and 3, which is for the Feather River Mills property, and then parcels 4 and 5, which is for I forgot the name, I just went right out with, thank you, the Hog Farm project with Mr. Newquist. And so just real quickly, focusing on those properties, this is the site of the Feather River Mill project that we're working exclusively with the Mehmet Noyan Company, with Mr. Noyan. We have taken actually an MOU to the Oversight Board and to this body as well. And so there's a clock that's ticking on the development or the next step for this project, and that starts ticking after this property management plan is approved by the Department of Finance, because it didn't make any sense to put a sunset date on it and something that we don't have any control over with the Department of Finance being involved. That's a detail of parcel 3. And then here's parcel 4, Mr. Newquist's piece that he's interested in building an event center. Thank you. Upon that, and then actually acquiring the property across the street over here as overflow parking or perhaps something else.
Parcel 7, that was just above the Newquist parcel. That one just goes away. It'll be sold to anybody, so the private sector would start coming in and
That's the plan.
kind of build whatever it's zoned for.
Yeah, it was certainly, so I should point that out, and that's an excellent question, is that just because it goes out on the open market doesn't mean that the city doesn't have any, relinquishes control over it. We still have our central city specific plan, our zoning ordinance, our general plan. It would be just like any other, private project that would have to come through and meet all of our design criteria. So whatever would come in there would have to comply with all of our rules and mirror what's down in the town center area anyway. So, excellent question.
Is it, Mayor?
Yes.
Another question for you, Aaron.
Yes, sir.
Parcel 7 and then also the Feather River Mills properties, I believe, have contamination on those properties.
Correct.
So how do we determine fair market value on those?
Well, that's something that we're proposing as part of the plan to the Department of Finance, that it would have to be included into the cost of the property or the transaction. So we're actually included on our ROP schedules from the very first one, a contingent liability cleanup, if you would, for those parcels. And for the Feather River Mill site, we estimated, based on some Phase 1 analysis, that it would be in excess of about $1.4 million. And so if the property, is appraised at $1.5 million, your net value is really, $100,000. So that would have to be included in that. And that is something that Mr. Noyen is aware of, and we've identified in the MOU. And so that would be something that would be negotiated as part of the acquisition or disposition of that property.
To the Mayor.
Yes.
And Mr. Noyen has previously acquired properties in other cities that have had contamination on them and has successfully gone through and cleaned those sites up?
That's absolutely correct, and that's why he came himself and met with, spoke to the oversight board, and that's where they concluded that he really represents the best opportunity for the successful development of that property, and that's why we're continuing to push in our property management plan to honor that agreement that we have with him.
And then, Aaron, what would we do in a case where, let's say that the cleanup exceeds the value of the property, which is likely to occur, or possibly could occur, on, I think it's Lot 7? What would we do with that property?
Well, that's an excellent question, and that's something that we're watching carefully with the Department of Finance to see how they responded to that. The word that we're hearing is that if that's the case, then it may just sit there until we figure out a way to either get an interested buyer who is willing to take it, and all the liabilities that go with it, or if we are successful through getting additional tax increment, we could go ahead and at some point in time afford remediating that site, which is an option but highly unlikely just because of the time involved to do that. But those would be the two options that I would think of.
I would be interested to see if any other jurisdictions go back with litigation specifically to properties that where cleanup may exceed, and being able to resolve it possibly that way. Where the Department of Finance would be the one potentially responsible for coming up with the money to clean that property.
It raises an interesting question, because we did talk about that with our legal counsel, that especially for the Feather River Mill site, because we are working with someone there, that if through the cleanup process that we're able to go back to the original property owners that were found to be those responsible for contaminating the property at the onset, if there's any remediation funds that come out of that, how those would be allocated. And our goal would be to put that in the agreements that we enter into with the property, with the purchaser, that those funds would go back into the property as opposed back to DOF to be later distributed to the other agencies because they've paid the price for that cleanup.
I think it'd be a good site for the future governor's mansion, so.
I agree. It would be lit all night long and not be any extra power off the grid.
So that concludes my presentation. So tonight we're looking for you as the City Council and as the successor agency to approve the long-range property management plan so that we can forward it on to the Oversight Board for their action.
Great. If there's not any questions, can I get a motion?
I'll move for approval of this item.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Motion carries.
Okay.
Next up.
I don't have any slides on this one, so I'll be real brief. This one is for the interagency loan agreement between the city and the former redevelopment agency. As I mentioned, in 2003, the city and the redevelopment agency entered into a loan agreement that followed up on the cooperation agreement that the city and agency entered into in 1988. Originally, this was entered into or approved as an enforceable obligation, but the third go-around, they denied it because they required a 2-year window, if you will, and their argument was that the agency was created in 1958, even though the project area was not defined until 1989. So, as a result, they took it off the list of enforceable obligations, but through the passage of AB 1484, we are now allowed to come back and with your approval, again, as a City Council and as a successor agency, we need you to ratify and amend the existing agreement and then find that the original agreement was for legitimate redevelopment purposes. And so we've included the ratification and the resolutions for both agencies tonight.
Questions for Aaron? Not?
I'll move to approve.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'd like to make a comment. Hopefully they don't change their regulations before it comes time to pay for this back to us. The way it's been going, I don't have a lot of faith in that happening.
Item number 18.
And finally, this is related to the bond debt associated with the construction of the Gaucher Aquatic Park. Again, this was an item that when in 2007 the city and the redevelopment agency entered into a reimbursement agreement, at which point the city agreed, or excuse me, the agency agreed to reimburse the city for 50% of the cost of the bonds. And so, again, because of the legality and the language, DOF turned this down on the third try for our enforceable obligations, and as such we were left with wondering where we're going to recover those funds. Again, with AB 1484, we are now able to re-enter into that agreement as long as you find that it is a legitimate redevelopment project. So with that, we have 2 resolutions and the ratification of that agreement.
Any questions?
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
I would move the recommendation.
Well, thank you, Councilmember.
It's my
Starkey.
pleasure, really.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Wonderful. Next up is business from City Council. City Council reports. Councilmember Buckland.
I have nothing to report since our last meeting.
Wonderful. Councilmember Mon.
No reports.
Okay. Councilmember Starkey.
I got the opportunity to go to the retirement celebration over at the fire department for Bat Chief Lemus and Captain Stefan. It was wonderful. And I had the opportunity to attend the Sutter Transit Authority board meeting, which was not quite as wonderful.
So it was
Brilliant, but thank you.
Vice Mayor Dukes.
I also attended the retirement party for the 2 gentlemen that were honored here tonight, and it was nice to be there to honor them. In addition to that, attended the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency meeting, which we approved a $99 million contract for areas B and D, which will start construction this year and will move us a long ways down the road here of our project of repairing our levees. Had a Feather River Air Quality Management District meeting, discussed the possibility of them moving and requested them to come back to the board with some financial options of doing that versus staying where they're currently at. The Mosquito Vector Board had the final approval of their two-tiered retirement system going forward. All new hires will be receiving a defined contribution plan versus a defined benefit, which is a huge step forward. It's the second agency in the state to do that, and it's going to be something that other agencies are going to be looking at to see how it works. And then SASA board meeting, we discussed the budget for the upcoming year, and that's all I had to report.
Wonderful. From our last meeting, other than the normal meeting of Cedar Beach Flood Agency, which the Vice Mayor's already hit on, our last City Council meeting, we held it at Yuba City High School. And it was nice. We had probably, it's hard to guess, a room full of about 300 students maybe. And it was a pre-period where their class didn't really start till 11:10, but our City Council meeting started at 10. And it was nice for them and for us to be there, but the main purpose of it was to have a lesson in government, in civics. And a lot of very interesting questions after the fact that the students were engaged in. And so we tried to stick around afterwards as much as we could, because I know they, as soon as the bell rang, they got up and left. And we plan to go back and do another one in the fall. We'd like to rotate between the high schools here. And I thought it was a great, great turnout. We will not be having a City Council meeting in the first week. We may have to reschedule one for the second week of May for the simple fact that Councilmember Dukes and I, Councilmember Buckland and I will be in Washington, D.C. for Capital to Capital, and our Vice Mayor will be attending a mosquito vector conference. So therefore, the three of us will not be here during that period of time, and we'll have to reschedule at point in time. Yeah, that's what we're afraid of. That's why we counseled it. That's why we counseled it. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
so,
meet with the citizens instead.
So with that, I don't have anything else until we get back. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.